Returning to our top story, Premier Doug Ford is in Washington with the rest of Canada's premiers pushing the case against Donald Trump's proposed 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, a plan that could have grave economic consequences for our nation. For more on this, let's bring in Peter Warian. He's an expert on the steel industry and teaches at the Munk School of Global Affairs at the University of Toronto. Peter, Hamilton's Stelco is owned by American company Cleveland-Cliffs, a company that has actually applauded the tariffs. Do you think the tariffs would apply to Stelco steel?
Well, it's a good question. Let me explain it this way. It would be possible. I don't have any inside knowledge of Stelco. If Stelco shipped a slab of steel to one of Cleveland-Cliffs' American operations, and then they went on to roll it or whatever they're going to do, and send it to a customer down there. In economics, that's called an intermediate goods transfer and wouldn't count as an import. But under the trade rules we have, and these were reinforced in the USMCA, that rules of national origin, they would still have to pay a tariff on the slabs, whatever the value of the slab is. So maybe there's a little bit of flex there, but I think the answer to the question is basically not.
Do you think there's a way that Canada could negotiate an exemption to these tariffs?
There should be, because any sensible person looking at the degree of integration of the North American steel industry, the auto industry in particular, which is the biggest customer of steel, a sheet of steel could come out of Hamilton and it could go across the border 3, 4, or 5 times before it finally lands as an auto part in a car. Well, where would you apply a tariff? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. We were able to get the steel companies, the government, the automakers, and the supply chain folks together and do that last time. My concern is this time, number one, Trump has said last night, no exemptions. Like many things Trump says, we'll have to see how that plays out. But secondly, I think Trump's real, the battleships he has his eye on here are the EU and China. And if that's the case, Canada is going to be a small voice when those big cannons are going off. So I think that means we can and we should have an exemption, if any, a rational thing comes to bear. But it could be tougher and longer. And of course, the longer it goes, what we learned last time in the 2008 thing, you start to get disruptions and layoffs, both in the steel industry and the auto industry and related industries. So the longer this goes, the greater you have the risks of layoffs, etc.
What do you think of Canada's response so far? And you're an expert on this industry. What's the argument you would make to the Americans to get an exemption for us?
Well, number one, this doesn't make sense in terms of the realities of how the industry has been working. They are our biggest customer. We are their biggest customers. We have all of these things like the auto industry just go across. You'd have to start reshaping the auto supply chains if you really just want to go down that path. So it's actually in our long-term interest to do this together. This was not what I was planning on doing my vacation, sitting here in Florida in Trump land, but no one's explained to the Americans that back of the envelope calculation, Trump does this, fully implements it. Then the cost of a car goes up about, back of the envelope, $2,000. An appliance goes up $300 or $400. That's going to be news to Americans.
Well, Peter, thanks for taking some time out of your vacation to talk to us. That's Peter Warian from the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the U of T.
Thanks again.